Version 1.4 is bringing a lot to Wuthering Waves. Things like the return of a very popular game mode, our first version of weapon skins, and what players are likely looking forward to the most, a new, stylishly seductive character. As Camellya is the only new 5-star releasing this patch, many realized it would feature another rerun banner like in 1.3, and that's exactly what's going to happen with Yinlin. The only thing is, there's actually 2 reruns happening in 1.4. Xiangli Yao, our first free 5-star limited character, is also joining the fray in the fight for your Astrite. And let's just say, this patch is bringing some of the hardest financial and budgetary decisions that any player can make. If we draw the conclusion that Camellya is going to be a strong DPS character, given her incredibly lengthy animations across her demo and extended field time, it's fair to say that version 1.4's banners are some of the best we've ever had. You could be someone who didn't play during 1.0 and didn't pull Yinlin, and now want to pair Xiangli Yao with his best teammate. Or you're someone who took a break during 1.2 and missed out on Yao completely. The fact of the matter is that these 3 characters and their weapons are some of the strongest investments you can make in the game. And today, we'll be taking the time to break down how strong these characters actually are, and who the best picks will be based off the state of your account. An incredible part of Wuthering Waves is how multi-rolled many characters are, and we know for a fact that the 2 Electro Resonators on these banners are some of the most flexible ones in the game. Whoever you choose to fill the gap in your roster, you can't really go wrong here. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. The first character that we'll be breaking down is the big one, Camellya, and unfortunately she's also the one that we have the least information on. However, there are a ton of clues and hints across her demo and the current roster that give us insight on the role she'll play on teams. Camellya is a Havoc character with huge, sweeping attacks, an enhanced state that amplifies those attacks, and a large amount of field time to get off all of those attacks. It's pretty clear for most players who viewed her gameplay and know about Wuthering Waves that she's going to play the role of a main DPS character, and considering how Havoc doesn't have a limited DPS yet, that all but confirms her main role on teams. What this means is that if you've managed to pull a high sequence node Dan Jin, which isn't very hard considering the insane number of banners she's been on, you'll probably be able to build a very strong Camellya team on day 1 right after pulling her, considering the insane buffs to Havoc damage and attack that Dan Jin can provide, while also coming equipped with one of the fastest concerto rotations in the game. However, there's still another synergy that you'll want to keep in mind if you're thinking about pulling Camellya. One factor when it comes to the limited DPSs is that there isn't a character that specializes in basic attacks. There are 4 main damage types in Wuthering Waves, and types like heavy, skill, and liberation damage are all covered by the previous limited characters. While Kuro could definitely double dip on damage types, like how the paired releases of Jinxi and Chongli both focused on skill damage, it's far more likely that we'll get our first basic attack focused limited 5-star in Camellya. And what that means is that owners of Sanhua might win a lot by pulling on her banner. With Sanhua's incredible rotation time, easy access to buffs, and respectable personal damage, she's an amazing potential pick as a sub DPS, potentially giving Camellya synergy with what many consider the strongest 4-star characters in the game. When it comes to her weapon, Red Spring, we don't have final details on its stats or effect, but considering how every other limited DPS's weapon gives us a general attribute or attack bonus, and additional bonuses based on the character's damage type, we can expect a similar stat profile for Camellya's. This weapon will only make Camellya stronger, but most players can simply use the incredibly powerful and very flexible Emerald of Genesis instead. That weapon's built-in crit rate and simple to use effect will likely make Camellya a fantastic pick, especially when it's a standard weapon and the banner is guaranteed. However, one thing we also have to recognize is that Camellya won't have a limited sub DPS that can bring out her full potential, like one that buffs both Havoc damage and her damage type. That isn't the case for Electro characters who currently lead the meta with one of the most powerful and easy to play teams in the game, a duo of Xiangli Yao and Yinlin, who are also paired together as the rerun banners. When you realistically only need 2 teams to clear the Hazard Tower and 3 for the Overdrive Zone, it can oftentimes be a better investment for a struggling player to complete one team before investing in another. And with Xiangli and Yinlin both available in the same patch, there are a ton of opportunities to complete this dynamic duo and demolished pretty much all the content in the game. Those who started the game late and claimed their free copy of Xiangli Yao in 1.2 could see a huge amount of value in pulling Yinlin, as she's Yao's best teammate in hypercarry compositions, while also having the flexibility to work in many other team comps with other limited characters. With her massive buffs to Electro and Liberation damage, she elevates Xiangli to heights in personal damage that can't be met with any other sub-DPS. And with his built-in survivability through his own time slows across his Liberation, his hypercarry team is one of the easiest to play in the game, and owning Shorekeeper only elevates this team further. Yinlin's value, though, isn't just with Yao. Her general buff to Liberation damage and coordinated attacks also give her a fair amount of flexibility with characters like Jinxie, Havoc Rover, and even Chong-Li. And her swap-cancelable animations allow her to be played at very intensive levels as well to reward her most dedicated players. Yinlin's a fantastic option if you're missing her, and she completes one of the strongest teams in the game while supporting many others. And her weapon, String Master? It's probably the best signature weapon in the game, with stats and effects so universal that it can be used to upgrade any of your DPS rectifier users like Encore or Jeja, with an obscene amount of crit rate that makes gearing these characters and their echoes an absolute dream. It's a weapon that should be on every player's account, if you can spare the pulls. When it comes to the other Electro character on the banner, the arguments to pull are a bit more complicated. Xiangli Yao is one of the best characters in the game, period. He can be played in hypercarry to great effect, while also having the kit to work in almost any dual DPS lineup in the game, with his team comp with Chong-Li performing close to, if not better, than his hypercarry lineup. You can use him in almost any team with any character. However, the fact of the matter is that most players already own him. He's rerunning 2 patches after he was given out for free. If you missed out, you can't go wrong with pulling him, but it's not going to feel great knowing how close you were to getting him for free. His weapon, on the other hand, is something that has a lot more appeal, especially considering how many people might have skipped out on it when it was released in 1.2, given how many pulls were saved for Shorekeeper and Camellya. Xiangli's signature is, unfortunately, a bit specific, and mainly serves as a critical stat stick for other gauntlet wielders. Its huge bonuses to Resonance Liberation damage don't work particularly well for other characters on the roster, but will do amazing things for your Xiangli's overall damage. Now that players have had the time to actually build him and experience his gameplay, it's safe to say that many love his playstyle and flexibility, and knowing how many teams he can be slotted in while performing incredibly well, you can't really go wrong in maximizing his potential with his weapon. What's clear from version 1.4 is that these banners and these characters are going to be stacked. We already know that our 2 rerun 5 stars are incredibly powerful, and Kuro isn't going to make a character like Camellya, who's been teased since 1.0, weak. You can't really go wrong when it comes to who you spend your asteroid on, so the best decision you can make is to go with your heart. The meta here doesn't really matter at all. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.